Yeah, so with the DEX, obviously that was a point of contention amongst the community. I think in the last AMA, I provided some more context around the decision to not build a user interface for the DEX and provided some background on sort of why the foundation chose to go down the path of just laying out the code base and GitHub and to accommodate anyone who is looking to build the user interface for the DEX over time. I think if I just refer back to what I previously said, it was, I think, threefold. First, there wasn't a ton of use case for the DEX at the time of launch, given limited DApps on our platform. I think two, it was thought that it would be too much resources dedicated to the DEX, given sort of the state of the ecosystem. I mean, having a certain amount of people fully dedicated to operating and running the DEX. I think I mentioned a couple things specifically that would be a little hairy around that. I think maintaining, upgrading, and then also handling diligence around new listings would be something that would be quite a task and will require, I think, full-time operators, which we didn't have that sort of resource capacity at the time. And then lastly, I think, is the regulatory landscape on exchanges more broadly. We've seen a number of inquiries from regulators on exchanges, and you've seen a number of the U.S. exchanges in particular start to, carve out a number of assets off their platform that may not meet regulatory standards. So I think, putting that all together, there were a number of factors that sort of led us to take a pause on building out the DEX in sort of a fully functioning fashion, like maybe the community expected. But that's not to say that we couldn't revisit that over time. I just think at the point when we were determining whether to continue to build the UI on the front end, we took a look at the landscape and decided to pause and develop to reposition assets in other directions. Okay, so I don't think the vision of ICON has changed. We still want to be an interoperability platform. We still have a close relationship with our technology partner who's developing private chains that will ultimately, we hope to connect with public blockchain long term. So those goals do not change. I think I did a decent job outlining in the AMA response to Bitburger that it's just the timing is it's difficult. And I think from the foundation's perspective and for the project itself, I think we want to be less reliant on that timing aspect in order to define the success of the project. I think longer term, those goals are still out there. And I think I mentioned the home run scenario. I think that still could play out, and we're very excited about that potential. But I think near term and medium term, we want to sort of do some more blocking and tackling on the crypto natives. And we think that there are some interesting concepts out there, such as DAO. We're actually building our DDP and EEP architecture to mirror sort of a DAO-like function. So we're very excited there. And there are other areas that we want to explore. DeFi is obviously receiving a lot of attention. It's a place that we want to explore as well. So I don't think that the vision has changed. I think that short term, medium term, maybe we're going to add in some new layers and new concepts that we would like to sort of focus on. But the interoperability is still the highlight of the project, and we hope to have private to public interoperability in September. And then, as Men and JH have stated, we hope to have public to public functionality end of year or early next year. So I think the timeline is still fairly solid, and I think that the project and its sort of ultimate goal hasn't changed. It's just we want to be in a position to sort of be in control of our own destiny a bit short term, and medium term, and I think that's why I want to add in a few additional layers to the project. I think you can probably put those two together. Obviously, Icon Loop has a number of very good relationships in very high places. Things like MyID, things like consortiums with top tier banks, top tier telecoms. I think, when those companies get more comfortability around public blockchain, you'll start to see the project flourish even further. But in the meantime, I think we want to continue building for what's sort of in front of us, at least short term or medium term. And I think that's why some of the foundations focuses will be on more of the crypto natives. But that's not to say that we're going to sort of disregard any of the great relationships that we build sort of in tandem with Icon Loop on the enterprise front. That's not going to be the case. We're still going to, provide significant amount of resources and talent to focus on those initiatives. But we're also going to focus a bit of the efforts and talent and time and resources on those other aforementioned pieces as well.